and I worked at LG for more than 12 years. And after that, I joined the National Palace Museum. And at that time, I could study some of the history and the culture of Korea. So my perspective on the relationship between North and South is based on my study of the history and culture of Korea. So it will be a bit different from the predominant view or prevailing view. So first, today we've been to the tunnel to see the ambition of North Korea to invade the South. And after that, we went to the observatory to watch North Field and then outskirts of the industrial complex, Kaesong Industrial Complex, to see the reality of North Korea, but it was hidden. Okay? We just saw the very peaceful mountains and then the industrial park. But as you have heard, as you were informed over there, artillery or the cannons are behind their mountain, so we just could not see them. So it was the first thing we saw at this tour, and after that we went to the highlight of tour today. It was JSA, Joint Secretariat, and you got the briefing about the DMZ and JSA over there, and then we went to the conference room, and then OP, Observation Post 3, and then the bridge of no return, and then we are returning to your hotel now. It was the thing. And now about my perspective. Some people believe that the reunification can become suddenly. Okay? They tell me, let's look at the case of Germany. Okay? In case of Germany, the unification was very sudden thing, okay, between East Germany and West Germany. The Berlin Wall was demolished sudden day, and it was very dramatic, So they implies that by the case of the Germany, like that, in Korea also, the unification can be realized as a certain dramatic event. But my view is quite completely different, because the basic environment is so different. Okay, let's see the environment or international circumstances of that time. When East Germany joined West Germany, at that time, the balance of power was broken already. Yes. The Soviet Union was disintegrated. Soviet Union itself divided into many countries, including Russia and Uzbekistan or like that. So they could not hold the East Germany as their bloc. So when the East German people wanted to join the West Germany, they could not hold them. So in case of Europe, the balance of power between communism and capitalism was broken. That's why there was no problem in the international environment. And then the gap between East Germany and West Germany was not so big, as a matter of fact. Of course, there is a big difference. That's why currently West Germany people still takes the burden of unification. But here in Korea, the difference between North and South is so big, and the gap is is becoming wider and wider. In addition to that, international situation is to the opposite of the case of Europe. Here in Asia, the balance of power was not broken. Instead of Soviet Union, China replaced simply the power of or position of Soviet Union. North Korea got the support of the Soviet Union. So they could continue the existence as a small kingdom with the support of Soviet Union. But after the weakening of Soviet Union, China simply replaced the Soviet Union. So the power balance is still kept between US and then now China. Before it was between Soviet Union and US. It was called Cold War between communism and capitalism. So after the Cold War, suddenly now the power struggle is going on between China and US. Even though US is very powerful, but still China is very near to us. So nowadays, I don't see international environment is like the case of Germany. There are four superpowers surrounding Korean Peninsula. Russia, still powerful, and then China, and then Japan, and then US. The four nations do not want any change of situation. So the equilibrium of power is still same. They don't want any change. They want status quo. The relationship between North and South is not a pure domestic matter. It is international matter nowadays. And in addition to that, from my view, North regime is very stable. When we were at the DMZ area, I told you that, from my view, North is very stable and strong in a political environment. Even though they are very fragile in economy, still their regime is very strong. They proved that in severe starvation. And also, based on my study of our country and history, the regime can go further than this time. Okay? Before this Republic of Korea in South and Democratic People's Republic of Korea in North, okay? The name of North Korea is DPRK, Democratic People's Republic of Korea, while South Korea is ROK, Republic of Korea. So the DPRK, North Korean people have never experienced democracy, even though they emphasize Democratic People's Republic of Korea. On the contrary, North people have never experienced democracy. Right after the last kingdom of Korea, which was Joseon, they experienced the colonization period by Japan, 35 years, and then division and communism. The communism was just a starting point. Now they are diverged to dictatorship. So the leader of North Korea is basically a dictator, and as you have been informed, it's like dynasty or kingdom, the Kim clan kingdom. So the three generations continue to take power of North Korea. So the leader of North Korea is just like king. And then he replaced the kingdom of Joseon, which was previous or last kingdom of Korea, Joseon. Joseon was the name of the last kingdom of Korea, which lasted for about 500 years, okay? From late 14th century to the first 20th century, before the colonization by Japan until 1910. Joseon Kingdom ruled the Korean Peninsula with what? With Confucianism. Confucianism was the national ideology, pure national ideology. It was. Before that, it was a Buddhist kingdom. Before Joseon, there was a Korea kingdom having the Buddhism as its national religion. But at the start of Joseon kingdom, they suppressed Buddhism and they completely turned to Confucianism. It was like the taking power of Taliban to Afghanistan. Radical Confucianists took power. Okay? And their ideology was very strong. And then under the Confucianism, the king was like the father of all nationals. Because it was one virtue of Confucianism was that to see their king as their father. It's Confucianism. One tradition of Confucianism is to observe and respect their king as their father. So even though the father make mistakes, he is allowed, is forgiven because his father. Okay? So from my view, Norse leader will be exempt from some mistakes. And then in addition, he created the cult of personality based on the belief of Norse people. They took advantage of the Confucianism to some extent. And then in addition, the leader of North Korea added a type of legend about himself. Okay, let me take an example. Some legends Norse leader fabricated. He told, he persuaded Norse people that he could turn the sands into bullets. He was a guerrilla fighter against the Japanese colonial period. Before the Korea's division, he was an independence fighter. Okay? He was a leader of the guerrilla fighters against Japanese army, and he meant that when they were in short of bullets, he could turn sands into bullets. Okay? He ordered the sands now become the bullets, and you are realized. Okay? And then another example is that he argued that he could run to China when in emergency situation over the Yalu River on barefoot. In other words, he could walk on the river. He could walk on the water like Jesus Christ. So he's almost God according to the legends he created. So with that type of fabricated stories, he brainwashed Norse people. Even though we see defectors from North Korea, it's very small number of people out of 24 million people. 99% or 90% would still firmly believe that their leader is still their father, and that the father has very magnificent power, like the God. So the leader of North Korea is demigod. Can you imagine? It's semi-god, not human being. Do you know the title of the first leader of North Korea? Dear leader, and then eternal leader. You see, he was dead. Okay? He was dead about 25 years ago, but still he's alive in the hearts of Norse people. Okay? His title is eternal leader. His body was not buried underground. His body was took care of, was got treatment, and then like the mummy of the Egypt, the body of the first leader of North Korea is still observed